The law was built for a world of physical threats, letters slipped under doors, strangers lingering in the hallway, the tangible sense of someone watching from the shadows. But what happens when the threat is digital? A ghost in the machine, invisible but ever-present, slipping through firewalls and passwords instead of locks and doors. In the early days of the internet, no one was prepared for this. The world was just beginning to understand the power and the peril of being connected at all times. The digital world promised connection, but it also gave old darkness new forms. Suddenly, threats could slip into your life through a screen, following you from room to room, city to city, never needing to show their face. This is the story of Emily Roth, whose life was upended by a stalker she barely knew, a digital phantom who invaded her privacy, her peace, and her sense of safety. Early cyberstalking was insidious, anonymous emails that arrived at all hours, instant messages from unknown usernames, social media posts that hinted someone was watching your every move. The psychological impact was profound. Victims felt exposed, powerless and alone, haunted by a presence that never had to show itself. Before Emily, cyberstalking was a murky concept, difficult to define, harder to prosecute. Police were sympathetic, but powerless. The tools they had were built for threats you could see and touch, not for shadows that slipped through wires and screens. How do you arrest a username? How do you protect someone from a threat that can change its face, its name, its location in an instant? The law wasn't built for digital torment. It lagged behind, leaving victims to fend for themselves in a world where the rules had changed overnight. Emily's fight forced the law to evolve, showing that online harm is real and must be confronted with the same seriousness as any physical threat. Behind every screen is a real person, and the damage inflicted online is no less real. Sometimes, it's even harder to escape. Emily Roth's life was beautifully ordinary. She lived in a quiet town, worked as a graphic designer at a local firm, and spent weekends brunching with her best friends or visiting her parents just a few blocks away. Her online world was simple. She shared photos of her cat, inside jokes with friends, and updates about her latest baking attempts. Emily wasn't a public figure, just another face in the crowd, cherished by those close to her, invisible to most. Mark, her future stalker, was a fleeting acquaintance at a friend's party, someone she barely remembered, a name she almost forgot. Weeks later, Mark emailed her out of the blue. She replied politely, thinking it was just a friendly follow-up, and quickly moved on with her day. But the emails kept coming, at first casual, then more frequent, and soon, uncomfortably personal. Mark mentioned details about her daily routine, her favorite coffee shop, the route she took to work, things she'd never shared online. At first she brushed it off as coincidence, but a subtle anxiety began to creep into her mornings and linger through her nights. Everyday routines, walking to work, chatting with neighbors, suddenly felt exposed, as if someone was always watching. The safe, ordinary world Emily knew began to fracture, her home no longer a sanctuary. The shadow from that fleeting party encounter was growing longer, stretching into every corner of her life. Emily's sense of safety slipped away, replaced by sleepless nights, constant worry, and the chilling realization that her ordinary life was under threat. At first, Mark's messages were just persistent, friendly check-ins, jokes, and harmless questions, but soon, the tone shifted. The text became constant, demanding replies at all hours. He commented on private photos, sometimes with inside jokes only Emily would understand. Other times with unsettling remarks about her appearance or location. He started asking about people in her life, friends, co-workers, even her family, probing for details, hinting that he was watching. Mark pieced together her world from digital fragments, tagged locations, mutual friends, old posts, building a map of her life. When Emily stopped replying, hoping he'd lose interest, he escalated. His emails turned from pleading to demanding, then angry. He created fake profiles, impersonated Emily, posting lies about her online. He emailed her colleagues with damaging claims, accusing her of misconduct, spreading rumors that left her isolated at work. The digital world became a weapon against her. Every notification brought a spike of anxiety. She dreaded looking at her phone. Her reputation was under attack, both online and in real life. Friends questioned her. Co-workers kept their distance. Then came the threats. Messages mentioning her address, her car, her daily routine. "I know where you live," one read. Another, "See you soon." The digital stalking bled into the physical world. She spotted a figure across the street, felt eyes on her as she walked home. Emily's fear became specific. A car following her, footsteps echoing behind her, a shadow in her driveway. She changed passwords, deleted accounts, installed new locks. But he always found a way in. The harassment was relentless. No matter how many times she blocked him, new accounts appeared. The sense of menace grew with every attempt to escape. Her home was no longer a sanctuary. Every creak, every shadow, felt like a threat. The stalker wasn't just online, he was in her mind, every moment. The menace was everywhere, and escape felt impossible. Desperate and afraid, Emily gathered every piece of evidence she could. Emails, threatening messages, screenshots of fake profiles, and went to the police, hoping for protection. The officers listened and sympathized, but their hands were tied. The laws on the books were written for a different era. One where stalking meant being followed in person, not harassed through a screen. Emily was told to keep records, change her passwords, and try to disappear online. But these were survival tips, not solutions. The burden of safety fell entirely on her shoulders. The police wanted to help, but there was no law against cyberstalking, no way to force social media companies to reveal who was behind the threats. Mark was just a shadow in the digital world, untouchable, untraceable. Law enforcement lacked the training, the tools, and the legal authority to intervene. Emily's fear was dismissed as intangible, her suffering reduced to lines of code and anonymous messages. Isolated and unprotected, Emily felt invisible to the system meant to keep her safe. The emotional toll was crushing. She was forced to shrink her world, living in constant anxiety, while her stalker remained free to torment her. In the eyes of the law, she was on her own. The harassment turned physical, and the nightmare escalated beyond anything Emily had imagined. Emily received an email, "Nice new curtains." She'd just installed them that morning. The realization hit her. Mark had been watching, close enough to see inside her home. Mark had been outside her house, lurking in the shadows, his presence confirmed by the chilling footage on her security camera. Packages began arriving at her workplace, each one more disturbing than the last. The notes inside were personal, menacing, and left no doubt that her stalker knew every detail of her life. One day, she found a photo of her house slipped under her door. Soon after, a car began following her home at night, its headlights a constant reminder that she was being hunted. Her stalker was no longer just online. Her colleagues noticed the change. Emily was jumpy, distracted, and visibly anxious. The office, once a safe space, became another source of dread as the packages and rumors spread. The most chilling moment came late one night. A car tailed her all the way to her driveway, idling outside for minutes that felt like hours before finally driving away. Emily was paralyzed with fear, certain she was being watched. The online threats had become real-life pursuit. Every step outside felt dangerous, every shadow a potential threat. The line between digital and physical stalking was obliterated. Emily's world shrank as she tried to erase her online presence, but the fear followed her everywhere. Emily couldn't live in fear any longer. The constant anxiety was suffocating, her sense of safety shattered. The justice system had failed her, restraining orders were ignored, and the police seemed powerless to help. She realized she had to fight back, for her safety, her sanity, and her peace of mind. Emily began documenting every incident, determined to make her voice heard. It was time to take action. Emily was done being a victim. She was ready to reclaim her life. With police unable to help, Emily turned to civil court, her last hope for protection. She and her lawyer sought a restraining order for harassment and emotional distress, but the legal path was anything but straightforward. They meticulously compiled evidence, hundreds of emails, fake profiles, malicious posts, unwanted packages, and real-world threats, building a timeline to show the relentless pattern. The defense argued that online actions were less serious, and some in the courtroom doubted whether digital harassment warranted legal intervention. Emily's case drew public attention, with both supporters and critics watching closely. It was a landmark, the first time digital harassment was treated as seriously as physical stalking. Her lawyer argued passionately that the medium didn't matter, the harm was the same. Emily's support network rallied behind her, but the opposition was fierce. After days of tense arguments and emotional testimony, the judge agreed, granting a permanent restraining order. Mark was barred from contacting her by any means, online or off, a rare and hard-won victory. For the first time, a legal barrier protected Emily, and she could finally breathe again. Her victory set a precedent. Online harassment could and should be treated with the same gravity as physical stalking, paving the way for future victims to seek justice. Emily's case sparked a wave of change that rippled far beyond her own experience. Her story, widely reported, put a human face on cyberstalking and exposed the dangerous gap in the law. Journalists, advocates, and everyday people began to demand action. Lawmakers responded, updating stalking laws for the digital age. California led the way, including electronic communications in its statutes. Soon, other states followed, inspired by Emily's courage and the public outcry. The legal landscape transformed. Judges and attorneys reflected on how Emily's case set a precedent, making it clear that online harassment would no longer be ignored. Police gained new authority to investigate and prosecute digital harassment. Officers recall how the new laws gave them tools to protect victims and hold perpetrators accountable. Emily's case raised public awareness and validated victims' experiences. Survivors began to speak out, finding strength in her example. Emily herself has said, "I never imagined my story would help so many others." Support groups and advocacy organizations formed, offering resources and hope. Counselors and advocates note a surge in people seeking help, no longer feeling alone or powerless. Law enforcement developed new training for cyberstalking cases, ensuring officers could recognize and respond to digital threats. Police trainers emphasize how these changes have saved lives. Today, victims have clear legal recourse. Online actions are recognized as real-world crimes. Families and communities feel safer, knowing the law is on their side. Emily's courage created a pathway to justice, ensuring others would not face the same terror alone. Her legacy endures in every life protected, every voice heard, and every law that now stands guard against the shadows of the digital world.